There are over 3,957 accidental drownings per year. That gives us an average of 10 accidental drownings per day. Now, what if I told you that there are clusters of accidental drownings that all have things in common? From the victims to the alleged killer's mark, it seems that there is more than meets the eye to these cases. All that and more on channels Unfiltered with 305. I don't know where I am. I'm so cold. Please help me. I'm lost. These were the first words that local college student Dakota James whispered to his friend over the phone late into the night on December 15, 2016. Afraid for their friend's safety, Dakota's friend, a woman named Shelley, raced from her dorm room to her car and drove towards the south side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Dakota was supposedly at. However, when Shelley checked her phone as to where Dakota actually was, he was on the opposite side of town. When she questioned Dakota on his location, he became more disoriented, and Shelley assumed that he had been drinking that night and probably just didn't know where he was. However, the longer they spoke on the phone, the darker the situation became. Dakota kept repeating the phrase, "I don't know where I am. I'm so cold. Please help me. I'm lost." When Shelley reached Dakota's location, she was horrified by what she saw. Dakota was exiting a hotel and stumbling over towards a jet black SUV with dark, tinted windows in a trance-like state. The SUV was facing the wrong direction, in the wrong lane, and as James stumbled closer to the vehicle, Shelley quickly sped up, calling Dakota's name as she pulled in front of the SUV, blocking his way. As she did this, Dakota snapped out of his trance, and the black SUV sped away into the night. Dakota got into Shelley's car, sobbing uncontrollably, trying to figure out what had happened that night. Shelley later told police that he had gone partying out to some local bars with his friends around 7:15 p.m. that same night, but remembered nothing after sitting down at the bar and ordering a drink. But there was something off about Shelley's previous theory that Dakota was simply drunk. Once the SUV sped away, Dakota regained his ability to walk. He could talk clearly and showed no other signs of being intoxicated. Very suspicious, right? 5 weeks later, Dakota James would disappear again. The date is January 25th, and Dakota was out drinking and partying with his friends in downtown Pittsburgh yet again. He went to the same bars, with the same friends, and at the same time as 5 weeks earlier. His last known location was picked up on a surveillance camera in downtown Pittsburgh, and it was seen that a dark black truck was seemingly following the young man from camera to camera. 40 days later, Dakota James was found yet again, but this time, it wouldn't be by Shelley. He was found in the Ohio River right off of Neville Island, located around Swickley, PA, and Coriopolis, PA. In his system was GHB, more commonly known as the date rape drug. It seemed that Shelley may have been right after all. Dakota's body was in eerily good condition, especially for being found in the water. Marks were on his neck that were consistent with strangulation, with other marks around his knuckles, feet, chest, and lower abdomen. There was also a transaction on his credit card while he was missing, which was found on his body when he was pulled from the water. However, despite the evidence, police ruled this as an accidental drowning, saying that he had reportedly fallen off the Roberto Clemente Bridge 40 days earlier, and gave no explanation as to why his body had not rapidly decomposed like any other body in that position would have. The most disturbing aspect of this case is that on the Roberto Clemente Bridge during the time Dakota was missing, 11 different smiley faces would be graffitied onto it, with one in particular having X's over their eyes. This case on its own would be a disturbing enigma, but what if I told you that this wasn't the only case with all these signs? There are over 300 separate cases with similar notes to all of this, all of which eerily line up, from the targets being white, athletic, popular, college-age men with connections, to the smiley faces appearing from the last known location while the victims are missing, and even to the drugs in the system and the marks on the body. All of these line up with each other, and each gets the same ruling, an accidental drowning. Well, I focused on a case that will hit home for all of us Pittsburghers. These cases are not just native to us. They are across the United States, and they don't seem to be slowing down. Discussing these with me are my co-hosts. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm me at Beaumariage.
I'm Calissa Smith.
I'm Liv Flatz.
And I'm Jim Skroupa. And today we will be talking about the conspiracy of the smiley face killers. All right. So based on the opening cold statement, as it'll hit home to many of us Pittsburghers, do you guys have any questions right off the bat that you want answered?
So, did he have any other, like, friends that noticed this within the
other than Shelly.
person?
Okay, so the first night, it was Shelly and just her, and she reported it to his other friends, so they could be on a lookout for him, but that was not enough. As the second night where it happened and he eventually passed away, no one was called, no one was anything, there was no text messages, there was no calls, there was nothing.
Well, like, whenever I go out, I always remember, like, my sisters always tell me this: if you go out, you come with the same people that you leave with, no matter what. You stay with them. So it just kind of throws me off that they did not keep track of this person while they're out partying.
I think that that's definitely odd, but I also know that, like, how do I phrase this so this comes out correctly? Men don't always have to worry about that.
That's true.
That's the very sad thing in today's society. They don't have to always worry about that, so I guess I don't even text people where I'm going out or if I'm doing something, because I don't have that fear, but I know that several women and non-binary people do have that fear, so I just don't know if the same rules would apply to Dakota.
Yeah.
So were there similarities, like, with that, like, the guys that ended up disappearing, like, with the other cases, like, they just, like, kind of got lost track of, and then that's when...
Yeah, a lot of them, because I mentioned that there are, like, 300 of these that all eerily line up. They all were disoriented, whether that was with a phone call, whether that was with a text, whether that was just friends noticed it while they were at the bars or at parties. They were all disoriented, and they also had the marks, they had the drugs in their system, they had no signs of being intoxicated despite acting as such. So, yeah.
But what about the 2 trucks that were following him?
So, that's, a lot of it is just very suspicious with this case, and with a couple of the others, there's some, like, minor discrepancies that line up with some and not with others, but a lot of it was a black SUV with dark tinted windows was typically either found following the boys, trailing them, just watching them or being, like, eerily close to the locations.
Did any of the guys ever, like, notice there was someone following them? No. And you said he was followed the first time by a black SUV and then the second time a black truck.
Yes.
Did he ever, like, talk to anyone about how he was being followed in between, like, the 5 weeks?
The things that I could find, which were news articles, news stories, and podcast interviews with people, never said that he was being followed. He may have said it, but I was not able to recover that information.
Is there anyone who thought they were going to be a victim of this killer but ended up not obviously being killed?
Oh, yeah. The college he went to, which was Duquesne University, had a mini sort of, I don't want to call it a lockdown, but they were much stricter about, like, boys and such, like, going unaccompanied because one of their own was pretty much murdered. Though it was ruled an accidental drowning, the college took precautions against it. So I think the college was more worried about it than the actual potential victims were.
So do you think this was one person doing it? Do you think it could be, like, a cult of people doing it? You never know, to be honest. A cult.
Because it's like the smiley face thing. That's like
Yeah.
their thing.
That's, like, their thing. And also, like, to be honest with you, one person doing 300 accidental
Yeah, and like
drownings.
all over the country too. It's like.
Do you know, like, how, like, the span of, like, how far across the country it is? Or is it, like, more
goes
focused?
from the Maine to California.
Oh my
It's
God.
the entire country.
That's crazy.
So that's, like, it cannot be one person.
I don't think it is. I think it's a group of people
Or it could be, like, copycat
or copycat
ones.
killers.
The time, like, how long has this been going on?
This has been going on, well, it's been going on for decades, but it was originally proposed by retired New York detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, as well as Dr. Lee Gibbardson, who is a criminal justice professor at St. Cloud State University. It's been floating around since 1997.
So that's a long time for one person to do
Yeah.
that.
That's when
They'd
the
be
theory
really
started,
old.
but the cases go all the way back to the 1950s.
Yeah, so this
Oh,
can't just
that
be
couldn't
one
be right.
person.
So how did they notice that like the smiley face was a thing? Because like Nirvana's thing is like the X with the smiley face.
They're just like,
I
we're
mean-
gonna take that.
That's where this theory actually does come under some criticism, because a lot of people are like, hey, smiley faces are very normal graffiti markings.
Yeah.
The thing that the detectives and the criminal justice professor pointed out, is that there's always either, like I mentioned earlier, the X's over the eyes where their supposed last location was, or there's a smiley face eerily close to where they found the body, where they pulled it out. So there's always like a point of contention with the smiley faces actually being tied to these accidental drownings.
So it's like always in like the premises of
It's
where
always
they find
been
them.
within a 5-mile radius, which I found to be very, very broad,
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
but it's how they make the theory work.
But also there are other like similarities, I
There
suppose,
are.
like between them, like all having the same drug in their system, all having like a phone call or a text and then like wandering off. Like those are all really like specific similar things that don't just randomly happen, I don't think.
Well, I think like with killing and stuff like that, it's like common for the victim to be like under some kind of like date rape drug or whatever. Yeah.
Or they're just really oblivious.
Okay. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to read some more of the victims of this. And you're going to tell me if you see any similarities.
Okay.
Okay. So we have Patrick Mcneill. He was found off a dock in New York City. He had the same marks of Dakota around his throat, wrists, abdomen, everything. A smiley face where they found his body, and a black SUV was following him. Then we have William Hurley, who was found in the Charles River. He had the same marks as Dakota. He had a smiley face where they found the body, and a black SUV was following him. Tommy Booth, found face down in a creek behind the bar he was last seen at. Same marks as Dakota, a smiley face on the back of the bar. Lucas Homan was found in the Mississippi River. Same marks as Dakota, a smiley face where they found the body, and a black SUV following him. Todd Gibb, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that last name. He was found in a lake that had been previously searched. The same marks as Dakota, a smiley face where they found the body, and his grave was actually defaced with one. And Brian Wiesen was found in Lake Michigan, same marks as Dakota, a smiley face where they found the body, and a black SUV was following him.
So this is obviously a pretty well-known case. Why didn't the police just check the security cameras and like find the license plate of these cars?
I don't know. My guess would be that they can't because of the way that security cameras are angled. Or if maybe they did find one, maybe it was not tracked down universally. I honestly don't know.
Also, you can steal people's license plates. It's pretty easy to do. Not
Oh.
that I don't know if it's experience or anything, but a lot of people that steal cars to kill people will take off someone else's license plate and put it on theirs, so that if they're getting followed, they can't figure out if that's actually their car.
And I
or
feel like
not.
a black SUV is pretty like broad.
It's pretty
It's
generic.
pretty common.
Like,
Like,
that's
they don't
pretty-
have like a, oh, is it a Toyota? Is it
yeah.
like, you know, like if it's a black SUV,
They
like
went black SUV, black truck. But
Yeah.
There's like
the only things in common were they had tinted windows and they were black.
Yeah.
so it could
which-
really be
yeah.
like any type of car.
And when you say like marks, do you mean like the strangulation marks
Yeah,
on
they
their
have
neck?
strangulation marks typically around the neck. They have just scabbed over marks around their wrists.
So it looks
They
like they
typically
were
have
like
scars
cut
around
up
their
or
abdomen.
something.
Yes.
So they were like most likely like bound in some
They
way.
were either bound,
like,
they might have
tied
been
up.
tortured, there was something happened with them.
It's like insane to me that even though there are like obvious signs of you can't bind yourself and like strangle yourself, like they didn't
Yeah, they're
think
like,
that there's
they're
someone
like,
else
yeah,
involved.
they just like did it by themselves.
That's
you know?
actually a very contentious point because there's a couple of reasons that people find that suspicious, like what you mentioned. They're wondering why the police haven't issued something.
Exactly, because you said the police like still ruled it suicide.
Yes. Accidental
were-
drowning.
Right? Or accidental drowning.
So there are a couple theories as to why the police haven't said anything. That they're overextended with current cases and they don't have time for this. The police are covering something up. The police don't think there's anything actually happening here. So that is just, they don't realize it. The police are part of the group of serial killers. That was, I only found that in one location, so I'm not going with that one. And the police are keeping this on the down low not to scare the public.
Because you said this has been happening from coast to coast. That's like a
Coast to coast for
Big-
over 50 years.
it's like a big
Yeah.
secret for the police to hold, even
And,
if it's like local, like Pittsburgh police.
Collectively, all of the police are like, nah, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, that's like strange.
Yeah,
That's
strange.
that's what's very suspicious, and what a lot of people are trying to figure out is why haven't they said anything? Because the FBI actually said something about this.
What did the FBI say?
The FBI stated that we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence sustaining the theory that these deaths are the work of serial killers or killer.
That's crazy. Like that,
what?
like, that's
The
shocking.
FBI spoke on this before local and state police departments did.
That's so strange.
Obviously, I feel
That
like they're
is
trying to
very-
cover up or something
That's
because
suspicious.
Has this ever been
Like-
found like in another place, like another continent or like country?
Not that I could find. There are similar deaths in Europe, Asia, and Africa, but those are like very few and far between, to the point of where a lot of people don't suspect they have any correlation.
Yeah, if anything,
well, also
it's like
there's a
copycat.
lot more serial killers in the United States.
Yeah. Like, isn't it like the statistic is you'll pass like 3 serial killers on the street in
have-
your
Oh, yeah.
life, or like
I
maybe in
believe
like a
that we
day or
have
so. I
more
don't know.
serial killers per
A day?
capita.
Hopefully
Yeah.
not a day.
We have the most serial killers per capita, which is
In Pennsylvania?
That's
no
concerning.
in the United States.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you look at other serial killers, like the Golden Gate Killer, he was part of the police, one, and they did not find him until he had a daughter, and his daughter had a grandchild.
Oh.
And, like, kid you not, they walked in while they're watching the news and are like, we're gonna arrest you because you're the person that was doing all this. And he was part of the police force for a little bit. So he, like, knew where they were looking, knew what they were doing. So I feel like someone has connections with this one.
I feel like there has to be. Like, I don't think that it could just be one person.
Yeah, it has to be
Like,
more than one
coast
person.
to coast, obviously 50 years. Like, they'd have to either be really old or start when they were really young.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah. I'm going to give you some flaws in the theory, and after that you can tell me if you still believe it. So there is no motive. There's
Yeah.
never been any motive stated. There's been no letters sent to the police, like Jack the Ripper sent letters. The
Zodiac.
Zodiac Killer, nothing has ever been explicitly stated. There's been no motive said, even though the victims are all the same, no motive. There is the argument that maybe they don't need a motive.
Maybe they're just like,
Maybe
why
they're
not?
envy killings. Maybe it's just people who are killing for the sport. We don't know.
or like a cult.
Or a
like
cult.
you said.
Yep.
Like Mia.
I think it's a
So,
cult.
The mark, which I kind of mentioned earlier, that some of the smiley face designs overlap, but overall they can vary greatly in their design.
Yeah, because there was this like awful like suicide challenge that was really popular in like 2017 called the Blue Whale Challenge, and I think like you had to like deface your body in some kind of like way so
you would
people
like
would.
enter like a chat and you would have to do it and like send
Well,
pictures.
I'm
of
like
what looks
relating
like.
it back to like the symbol kind of thing. There was no like specific like drawing or whatever.
No,
So
it was kind of just
maybe-
like it's out there.
yeah, maybe it's something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other part of the flaw is that the FBI spoke on it, and they said that we didn't find anything, and that is the government saying that there's nothing here. But the government has said that there's nothing here in years past, and they've later come out and said that there's lots of evidence.
Well, I think that, like, if the actual like smiley face itself is different, it like could point to the fact that there is
Different
multiple
people,
people,
yeah.
different people doing it,
Or cults.
or a cult, like you said.
Because an interesting tidbit is that the detectives and the crime professor that I mentioned earlier actually tried to find it on the dark web, and they found chat rooms that could be related, but they were unable to get in because they didn't have a required password.
Unable to get in. This is literally the FBI.
No,
They
it's
could-
like
they couldn't
the
crack
dark
the,
web is so hard to get into.
They couldn't crack. They needed like
real,
entrance.
Mia.
They needed like
How
entrance
about
codes
you?
to get into the chat rooms. So it's still undetermined as to whether or not that they were chats talking about the murders or if they were plans. But they've brought that up that we found things about relating to this on the dark web.
There has to be some connection, like bringing like mass groups of people together to do that.
It's
like-
gonna take more than just one person.
I would agree.
It's gonna take more than the FBI trying to crack a secret code.
Yeah.
I think.
So I guess before we close off, do you guys believe in this theory?
I believe in it.
I definitely, yeah. I do.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I just there's too much like that doesn't make sense.
It's like
Yeah.
I think, like,
coincidentally the same in almost all of them.
yeah, and like the marks are the same. Like the date rape drug is the same.
Yeah.
The car, while there's like a little like speculation about that,
Okay,
is
but
like
them all
generally the
being
same.
Bound. Like
Yeah.
you can't like
Yeah,
You
that's
can't find
how are you
yourself.
like and like drowning yourself at the same time. Like, I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense.
And then the bounds just magically fell off while you're in the water.
Yeah, like why didn't they like test that for like fibers? They could find out what they were.
Well, the common thing is they didn't find. Do you know what skin slippage is?
No.
It's where when you're in the water for a certain amount of time, it's typically over like a 30-day period, your skin becomes slippery.
Oh.
Because it's absorbed so much water and it's starting to decompose. No skin slippage on any of these bodies.
So it's saying that they were placed in there
Coincidentally.
later.
Also, they were all like pretty well-kept condition. So obviously they were held for a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just gonna put you here now."
Because if they were missing for 30 days, they wouldn't be in good condition.
Yeah, they'd be a little
40 days with Dakota.
40
right?
Dakota. Dakota was the longest one.
Like,
But
what are
the
they
shortest
doing
is-
for 40 days?
The shortest has been 15 days, so it's still
Which
like
is
over
still over 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what are you? I don't know.
A lot of people don't know because some of the deaths don't have to do with drowning. Some of them do. So there are some theories that some of the killers dump them in the water and let them drown.
A majority are drowning them?
Yes.
No, a majority of them are brute force.
Oh.
I'm going to leave you with that. This has been Unfiltered with 305. Good job.